When someone truly misses you, even if they don't speak the words, their energy carries the message louder than any sentence could. You have to understand that human beings are transmitters and receivers of energy, whether they realize it or not. Every thought they have about you creates a subtle shift in how they feel in your presence. It's almost impossible to disguise it because the body, the voice, the eyes, they all leak the truth the mind is trying to hide. When a man is missing you more than he admits, you'll feel something different in the air when you walk into the same space. You may not be able to pinpoint it at first, but you'll notice a change. His tone might soften or become warmer, almost unconsciously. Or perhaps it sharpens for a moment, as if he's fighting to keep control of his emotions. This is the first sign his energy betrays him. It's not about grand gestures or dramatic expressions. It's in the small, almost invisible signals. He may stand differently when you're around. His posture might shift from casual to attentive, like his body is tuning into your presence without his permission. He may speak with more focus when he addresses you, even if the conversation is about something meaningless. His eyes might hold you for a fraction longer than they should, almost as if he's trying to store a piece of you in his mind. This isn't something you can always explain logically because it's happening on a deeper level. It's instinctual. His body is responding to the emotional gap that has been created in your absence. And now that you're in the same room, that gap feels like it's closing, even if just for a moment. You'll also notice a subtle nervousness. It's the way he might fidget with something in his hands, shift his weight from one foot to another, or glance around as if he's trying to compose himself. It's not necessarily a discomfort with you, but a discomfort with what he's feeling inside. Missing someone and not wanting to show it creates an inner conflict. Part of him wants to relax into your presence and soak it in, while the other part wants to protect himself by keeping things casual. That inner tug of war spills out through micro expressions. The twitch of a smile that comes and goes too quickly, the way his eyebrows lift when you speak, the sudden depth in his gaze when he thinks you're not looking. Energy shifts are not just about how he acts toward you, but also about how he reacts to others when you are around. Pay attention to the way his focus changes. If he's speaking to someone else, but you enter the space, there may be a slight pause in his words, or his eyes might flick toward you briefly before he continues. Even if he's engaged in another conversation, a part of him will be attuned to your presence. It's not about obsession. It's about longing that he has tried to bury, but hasn't succeeded in silencing. Sometimes this shift in energy is even more telling when you're not physically in front of him but are mentioned in conversation. If someone casually brings up your name, watch for the momentary break in his composure. His voice might change pitch. He might clear his throat, take a small breath, or offer a short smile before quickly steering the conversation elsewhere. These are all signs of someone who feels more than they want to show. The mention of you pulls him into a place where the emotions he's holding back threaten to surface. This is why reading energy is such a powerful skill. Words can be guarded, rehearsed, or even false, but energy is raw truth. You can feel when someone's heart speeds up in your presence, even if their face is still. You can feel when their attention lingers, even if they pretend to be busy. The key is to trust your perception. If you sense the air change when you step into a room, if you notice his body becoming more alert or his eyes finding you quicker than anyone else, it's not by accident. That's an unspoken pull. It's an unspoken admission of how much space you take up in his mind. And no matter how much he may try to mask it, energy never lies. When a man misses you more than he's willing to say, one of the clearest signs is the way he begins to create reasons to cross your path. It rarely looks obvious on the surface because he doesn't want you to connect the dots. He won't announce that he's been thinking about you all week or that seeing you feels like a relief after days of absence. Instead, he will weave himself into your world under the disguise of coincidence or necessity. He may suddenly remember that something from a place he knows you frequent, or he might reach out with a small, seemingly harmless request that doesn't truly require your involvement but conveniently puts him in contact with you. This is not random. It's a quiet strategy of the heart, a way for him to satisfy his longing without confronting it directly. You'll start to notice patterns if you pay attention. He might show up at events or gatherings where there's no strong reason for him to be there other than the possibility of running into you. Sometimes he will act as though he just happened to be passing by or that his plans just aligned with yours. But deep down he planned it, even if only subconsciously. Missing someone stirs a restlessness inside a person. It pushes them to seek out even the smallest opportunities for connection, whether in person or through a shared environment. When someone is thinking about you constantly, proximity becomes a way to ease that ache, even if nothing is said out loud. It's not always about physically showing up. In the modern world, creating reasons to cross your path can also happen digitally. He might reply to something you posted, comment on something small, or send you a link or meme that reminded him of you. On the surface, it seems casual, but beneath it is the intention of opening a door for conversation. These small touches are his way of bridging the gap without the vulnerability of saying, "I miss you." They allow him to feel connected while still maintaining the appearance of nonchalance. What's interesting is how these moments often carry a certain awkward charm. He may stumble over his reasoning when explaining why he's there, or his excuses may not quite make perfect sense if you think about them too much. That's because his real motivation isn't logical, it's emotional. Logic would tell him to leave things as they are, to maintain the distance, to keep things neat and safe. But emotions are rarely neat, and when someone is missing you deeply, the need to feel your presence can outweigh their desire to stay guarded. This leads to actions that seem coincidental but are in fact deliberate. Sometimes these encounters are fleeting. He might appear, exchange a few words, and leave quickly, as if he's trying to convince himself that it wasn't a big deal. Other times he'll linger a little longer, subtly drawing out the interaction. You might notice that he doesn't seem in a hurry to leave once he's around you. He'll find another topic to talk about, another question to ask, or another reason to extend the moment. That's the hidden hunger, the quiet desire to stretch out the time spent near you because that time feeds a part of him that's been starving. This behavior can also show up in more indirect ways. He may use mutual friends or shared interests as a bridge to keep your lives intersecting. For example, he could bring up a mutual connection and suggest doing something as a group, knowing you'll likely be there. Or he might ask someone else about you in casual conversation, planting small seeds of connection that eventually find their way back to you. It's like creating a web of possibilities that increase the chances of seeing you without having to say outright that he wants to. What makes this sign so revealing is that it comes from a place of longing that's too strong to suppress completely, even if he has reasons to keep his feelings hidden. Pride, fear, uncertainty. He can't stop himself from creating these moments. It's an instinctive pull toward the person who occupies his thoughts. Missing someone doesn't always drive a person to grand declarations. More often, it pushes them into small, calculated moves that offer emotional relief in manageable doses. Every chance meeting, every sudden text, every unexpected appearance is his way of feeding that need while still pretending he's unaffected. If you step back and see the bigger picture, these patterns stand out. They're not just random accidents of timing. They are deliberate alignments, even if he doesn't consciously admit to himself that he's orchestrating them. People rarely go out of their way repeatedly for someone they feel neutral toward. This behavior is rooted in care, in interest, in the quiet ache of wanting what's missing. And once you understand that, you start to see these coincidences for what they really are, subtle admissions of how much space you truly take up in his world. When a man is missing you more than he admits, one of the clearest signs shows up in the way your conversations with him unfold. They don't just start and end like ordinary exchanges. They linger, they stretch, they hold a certain weight that isn't present with anyone else. Even when the topics are light, unimportant, or purely casual, there's a subtle reluctance to let the interaction end. It's as if he's holding on to your words because they give him a sense of closeness he hasn't felt in your absence. Conversations, whether in person, over the phone, or through messages, become more than just communication. They become his quiet way of keeping you near without admitting how much he's been craving that connection. You'll notice that even if the conversation starts with a specific purpose, it doesn't stop there. Maybe he reaches out to ask a simple question, but instead of saying goodbye after your answer, he finds another topic to slip into. That other topic may not even be important. It could be something as small as a comment on the weather, a random memory, or a passing thought. But the purpose isn't the content itself. The purpose is to keep the connection alive for just a little bit longer. When someone misses you, silence feels heavier for them than it does for you. So they fill that silence with words, hoping it will buy them more time in your presence. Even in person, you might find that he stalls before leaving. He may linger at the door, ask one more question before parting ways, or circle back to something you already discussed earlier, just to keep the exchange going. Sometimes it feels like he's looking for a reason to remain in the moment. You'll see it in the way his eyes stay on you, as if memorizing your expressions, or the way he listens more attentively than before, as though each second with you is something he's been missing for far too long. In today's world, this also shows up in texting patterns. When someone misses you but doesn't want to admit it, they may extend text conversations far beyond their natural conclusion. Instead of leaving it at your last message, they'll send a follow-up that keeps the dialogue going, even if it's a playful comment, a question about something irrelevant, or a, by the way, that isn't urgent. These are subtle hooks to keep the exchange alive, because ending it feels like cutting off a source of comfort. Another layer to this is how he reacts to your pauses. If you take too long to reply, you might notice that he sends something else to draw you back into the conversation. This isn't always a sign of impatience. It's often a sign of wanting your attention for a little longer, a desire to keep that flow between you alive. He may not say, "I didn't want this to end," but his actions will show it in the way he resists letting the dialogue fade away. And it's not just about time, it's about depth. When someone misses you, even conversations about nothing start to feel like something. That's why a simple exchange about your day, a funny observation, or even a random question can carry a warmth that feels different. He's not just talking to pass the time, he's talking because every moment of shared space, whether spoken or written, makes him feel closer to you again. That closeness is the quiet medicine for the longing he's been carrying. Sometimes these prolonged conversations are also a way for him to read your energy, to reassure himself that he still has a place in your world. By keeping you talking, he's listening for cues in your tone, your choice of words, your laughter, and even your pauses. He's looking for signs that the connection he feels hasn't faded for you either. That's why even the smallest chats can have an undercurrent of emotion. There's a layer of meaning that goes beyond the surface. These moments are often understated, which is why they can be so telling. People who aren't invested in you don't put effort into holding your attention when the topic has run its course. They move on. They let the conversation die naturally. But someone who's missing you will find ways, sometimes without even realizing it, to stretch the interaction. He might ask about something completely unrelated just as you're about to say goodbye, or he'll bring up a shared memory that invites more back and forth. It's in these moments that his guard slips the most. He might laugh a little longer at your jokes, respond more quickly to your messages, or open up about something small in his day just to see how you'll react. And while it may look casual to an outside observer, you'll know it's not just idle chatter. It's the behavior of someone who is holding on even in the smallest ways, because letting go too soon feels like losing you all over again. When someone misses you more than they admit, it often shows in the way shared memories slip into their conversations. It's rarely intentional. These moments surface naturally because the mind tends to wander toward what it longs for. He may not sit there thinking, "I'm going to bring up the past to let her know I miss her." But his words will reveal that you are still woven into his thoughts. Without realizing it, he revisits moments you've experienced together, almost like he's holding those memories up to the light to feel them again. These references are like breadcrumbs leading you back to the truth that the time you spent together has left an imprint he can't shake. It can be something as simple as him recalling a small inside joke the two of you once shared. Maybe you said something months ago that made him laugh, and out of nowhere, he repeats it in conversation. Or perhaps he mentions a restaurant, a place, or an event you both went to, connecting the present moment back to that experience. Even when he talks about other people or unrelated events, he might draw a comparison that includes you. This reminds me of the time we. These are not random details, they are reflections of a mind that still holds you close. What makes this sign so telling is that memories are emotional anchors. When someone mentions a moment from the past, it's not just about recalling an event. It's about reactivating the feelings that came with it. If those memories are tied to happiness, laughter, comfort, or intimacy, then bringing them up is his subconscious way of reliving them with you. It's like stepping back into that time, even if only for a few seconds, because that space felt safe, familiar, and connected. You might notice that when he talks about these moments, his tone shifts. There's often a softness, a warmth, or even a spark in his expression that wasn't there before. His eyes might light up, his smile may linger a little longer, and his voice could carry a hint of nostalgia. These changes are subtle but powerful because they reveal the emotional weight those memories still carry for him. A person who is indifferent doesn't dig up the past in such a personal way. They don't revisit specific shared experiences unless those experiences still matter to them on some level. Sometimes the memories come wrapped in curiosity. He might ask, "Do you remember when?" Or, "Have you been back to that place we went?" This isn't just idle conversation. It's an attempt to re-engage you in that shared space, to see if you feel the same connection to it that he does. By talking about it, he's not only reliving the moment himself, but also inviting you to feel it again. This shared recall becomes a small bridge back to the closeness you once had. The most revealing moments are when these memories appear out of context. You could be discussing something entirely unrelated, and suddenly he ties it back to something you experienced together. That's when you know you live in the background of his thoughts more often than he lets on. The mind doesn't pull from the past unless that past is still alive somewhere inside. Even if he tries to keep the conversation light, the act of mentioning you in his reflections is his way of keeping you present without directly saying it. These references might also be his way of testing the waters. He could be gauging how you react when he brings up the past. Whether you smile, whether you remember, whether you engage. For someone who misses you but fears rejection, these small memory drops are safer than outright confessions. If you respond warmly, it reassures him that the connection is still there. If you seem distant, he can play it off as casual conversation. This makes revisiting memories the perfect, subtle strategy for someone trying to maintain a link without exposing all their feelings. Sometimes he may not even be aware of how often he does this. Missing someone creates a mental habit. Your mind starts to associate different situations with them. He might hear a song and think of the night you both stayed out late, or see a certain food and remember the time you cooked together. These associations are powerful because they're not forced, they happen naturally. And when they spill out in conversation, they reveal the emotional hold you still have over him. Even when he talks about those memories, there's often an unspoken longing underneath. It's in the way his eyes linger on you after mentioning it, as if he's silently asking, "Do you remember how it felt?" It's in the pauses between his words, the moments where it seems like he's lost in thought, almost as if he's back there in that time with you. And while he may not come out and say, "I miss those days," the very act of bringing them up is its own confession, one that speaks louder than a direct admission ever could. When a man is missing you more than he admits, one of the quietest yet most powerful signs is the way he watches you from a distance. This isn't always about physically following you or being in your space. It's about observation that's subtle, patient, and often disguised as something else. He might not come forward to speak to you every time, but his eyes will find you in a room, and his attention will rest on you longer than necessary. Sometimes it's just a glance that lingers. Other times it's a series of quick, almost hidden looks when he thinks you're not paying attention. This kind of watching isn't idle curiosity. It's a form of longing that plays out silently, a way for him to feel close without stepping into vulnerability. In person, this can be the way his gaze finds you in a crowd. He might be in conversation with someone else, but you'll notice his focus shift toward you for a second or two before he returns to what he was doing. If you catch his eye unexpectedly, he might quickly look away or cover it with a casual gesture, like taking a sip of his drink or adjusting something near him. But the truth is, those moments of watching are intentional, even if he doesn't consciously realize how much he's doing it. For someone who misses you, even the smallest glimpse can feel like a brief relief, a tiny refill of something they've been craving. This kind of attention also shows up online. In the digital age, watching from a distance doesn't always mean standing across a room. It can mean quietly keeping tabs on your life through what you share. He might not comment or like every post, but you'll notice he views your stories, reacts to updates, or somehow seems aware of details you didn't directly tell him. It's not about stalking. It's about wanting to feel included in your world, even if it's from the sidelines. He may not have the courage or the timing to step closer, but that doesn't stop him from wanting to see where you are, how you're doing, and what you're feeling. When someone is missing you, watching becomes a way to reconnect without risk. By observing you, he can relive a small part of what it was like to be near you. He can take in the way you move, the way you smile, the way you interact with others. And in his mind, it brings him back to a time when that was familiar and constant. The distance makes it safe for him because there's no pressure to respond, no possibility of rejection in that moment. Yet, the more he watches, the more he feeds the very feeling he's trying to keep hidden. Sometimes you can sense it without even seeing it. There's an almost tangible pull when someone's attention is locked on you. You might be engaged in something else, but you feel that presence, that quiet focus. It's subtle, but the human mind is highly sensitive to being observed. And when you finally glance in his direction, you might catch the quickest flicker of movement as he pretends to look elsewhere. Those tiny slip-ups are revealing. The way he looks at you isn't casual, it carries weight. And weight is always a sign of emotion. It's also worth noticing that this watching often carries a softness. There's a difference between someone glancing at you out of politeness and someone looking at you because they miss you. The latter has a warmth in it, a certain gentleness, as if he's trying to hold on to something without disturbing it. He may even look at you like he's memorizing details. Your expressions, your mannerisms, as if storing them away for the times when you're not around. That's because missing someone sharpens your awareness of them. Little things you once took for granted become treasures you want to keep. This silent observation can last longer than you'd expect. Even if you haven't been in touch for a while, the habit of watching from a distance can linger because it's less about the present circumstances and more about the emotional connection that still exists. It's his way of bridging the gap without stepping into the vulnerability of saying anything outright. In some cases, he may even choose to keep that distance on purpose, feeling safer in the role of a quiet observer rather than risking an interaction that could change the dynamic. What makes this sign so telling is that it often happens when he thinks you won't notice. It's not a performance. It's not for show. It's a natural pull of attention. That's why catching those moments feels different from ordinary eye contact. There's an undercurrent of emotion running through them, something unsaid that's almost more powerful than words. And whether it happens in person or from behind a screen, the act of quietly keeping you in his line of sight is one of the clearest indicators that you're still on his mind far more often than he would ever admit aloud. When a man misses you more than he admits, one of the most revealing signs is how his guard slips in unplanned moments. He might spend days or weeks carefully controlling his tone, his words, and his behavior around you, all in the name of keeping his feelings hidden. But emotions have a way of slipping past even the strongest defenses, especially when they're triggered unexpectedly. These slips are rarely dramatic. Often they're subtle, fleeting, and so quick that if you're not paying attention, you might miss them. But when you notice them, you realize they're the purest glimpse into what he's really feeling. Sometimes it's a laugh that comes out too easily, too fully, when you say something amusing. It's not just polite laughter, it's genuine, unrestrained, and filled with warmth. In that moment, he's not thinking about how to appear distant or composed. He's simply caught in the joy of the exchange, and the sound of his own reaction betrays him. Or maybe it's the way his eyes soften when you share something personal. That tenderness wasn't planned, and it can't be faked. It appears naturally, like muscle memory, because the emotions are still very much alive beneath the surface. These slips can also be triggered by the environment. A certain song playing in the background, a scent in the air, or a place you once went together can catch him off guard. You might see him pause for a fraction of a second, his expression shifting in a way that reveals he's been pulled into a memory. In that instant, the carefully built wall between you cracks, and the longing he's been hiding flickers across his face. He may quickly cover it with a change in subject or a neutral comment, but you've already seen what's underneath. There are times when it shows in his body language without a word being spoken. Maybe you walk into a room unexpectedly, and before he has a chance to compose himself, his entire posture changes. His shoulders might straighten, his eyes might light up, or he might involuntarily move slightly closer, almost as if drawn in by instinct. It's these reflexive reactions, the ones that happen before his mind can catch up, that reveal the truth more than anything else. He can rehearse what to say, but he can't fully control how his body responds to your presence. Even in conversation, his guard can slip when emotions rise. He might start speaking with more depth or vulnerability than he intended. Maybe he shares a small detail about his life that he wouldn't normally offer, or he asks a question about you that feels more intimate than usual. It's not part of a planned strategy. It's a moment where his curiosity and care override his intention to stay detached. Once he realizes how open he's been, you might see him pull back slightly, shifting the tone to something lighter. But by then, the truth has already been revealed. Sometimes these moments happen when he's tired or distracted. When the mind isn't fully focused on maintaining a mask, the heart tends to speak more freely. You might catch him looking at you with an expression that's almost wistful, or hear a softness in his voice that doesn't match the casual nature of the conversation. It's in these unguarded seconds that you see the contrast between what he shows you intentionally and what leaks through when he's not trying so hard. The most telling slips often occur in group settings. When other people are around, he might feel safer because the attention isn't solely on the two of you. But that safety can also make him less vigilant about hiding his reactions. You might notice that he laughs at your comments a little louder than at others, or that his gaze finds you even while he's engaged elsewhere. In those moments, he's not consciously monitoring how much he's giving away. He's just being himself, and that self still gravitates toward you. Another form of this is the way his voice changes in certain situations. The tone might drop, become gentler, or carry a warmth that wasn't there moments before. This isn't something he plans. It's the natural shift that happens when someone speaks to someone they care about. That shift in tone is one of the most honest signals, because it's hard to manipulate consistently. It comes from emotion, not from intention. And then there are the slips that happen when emotions run high, maybe in a moment of frustration, excitement, or surprise. In those heightened states, people often reveal what they truly feel without meaning to. He might say something protective, something affectionate, or something that shows he's been paying more attention to your life than you realized. These statements often come out quickly before he can edit them, and then he might try to backtrack or downplay them. But the truth is already in the air, and you've seen a piece of the heart he's been trying to keep hidden.